Have you ever wondered why sometimes a woman looks at you, then quickly looks away, and you spend the next hour questioning whether it was real or just in your head? You replay the moment her glance, the slight hesitation, the way she fixed her hair right after, and still, you doubt yourself. You think, maybe she was looking past me, maybe it meant nothing. But what if I told you, more often than not, it wasn't random? What if I told you women glance at you far more than you notice? And the reason you don't catch it isn't because it doesn't happen, it's because you've trained yourself not to believe you're worth noticing. The truth is, women rarely hold eye contact with men they're interested in for more than a second or two. Why? Because attention is a currency, and they spend it sparingly. A glance is like a test. She's asking silently, "Did you see me? Did you feel that?" And your reaction is the answer. Most men fail it. You either look down in insecurity, or you overreact staring too long, grinning awkwardly, making it obvious you're desperate for validation. Both reveal weakness. The strong man, the magnetic man, doesn't scramble. He meets the glance with calm acknowledgement, then lets it go. That one simple reaction separates the man who is chosen from the man who is dismissed. Think back to a night out, maybe at a bar or a social event. You felt invisible, like no woman paid attention. But if you had slowed down, scanned the room, you would have noticed the quick flickers of eyes landing on you, then darting away. Women are trained to be subtle. They can't afford to project interest too openly. It risks rejection. It risks gossip. It risks giving away the power. So they test silently through these almost invisible looks, and when you miss them, you assume you're unwanted. That belief eats at you. It makes you slump your shoulders, speak with less conviction, radiate defeat, and ironically, it kills the very attraction you could have sparked. I'll give you a concrete example. A man I once coached walked into a coffee shop, always convinced he wasn't attractive. He'd sit quietly, drink his latte, leave without a single word spoken. One day I told him pay attention not to conversations, not to smiles, just to eyes. Within 20 minutes, he counted 5 separate women who glanced at him. Some adjusted their hair, some shifted their posture. He'd never noticed before because he was lost in his phone or his own doubt, but once he tuned in, he couldn't unsee it. His presence hadn't changed, only his awareness did. That's when he realized the game was happening all along, and he was the only one not playing. Now here's the strategy you need to remember: never chase the glance. A glance is not an invitation for you to rush in. It's bait. She's watching how you handle it. If you look back and then keep your frame, your conversation, your posture, your focus, you demonstrate that her attention isn't oxygen to you. That restraint makes her want to give more. Attraction grows in silence, in the gaps you leave unfilled. The moment you lunge forward, you kill the tension. You teach her that you're predictable, needy, easy to pull into orbit. The man she remembers is the one who noticed her look, didn't flinch, and stayed rooted in his own gravity. And let's go deeper. Women glance more at men who look composed when they think no one's watching. They scan for micro-signals: your walk, your stillness, the way you hold a drink or lean against a wall. She'll test you when you least expect it, that flash of eye contact while you're talking to a friend, or when you're paying for groceries, or when you walk past her table. And here's the part that hurts half the time. You blow it without even realizing. You break your frame. You fumble. You act like the glance was a spotlight instead of what it truly is, a whisper. So here's what you do next time. Train yourself to assume she is looking. Walk into a room with the calm certainty that glances are happening, even if you don't catch them all. Hold your frame anyway. It changes your energy. You stop acting invisible, and women sense it instantly. Then, when you finally do, catch the glance. You'll be ready. Meet it, hold it just long enough to register, then let it fade like you have somewhere better to be. That's the balanced presence without pursuit, confidence without hunger. That's what women can't resist, because it's so rare. Have you ever caught a woman's glance but dismissed it, thinking you imagined it? Have you ever overreacted to eye contact and felt her lose interest instantly? Or have you walked away from a place only to later realize she might have been waiting for you to notice her? Be honest, what's your story? Drop it in the comments. You've probably lived this moment without fully realizing it. You're standing in line, maybe at a grocery store, maybe waiting for a drink at a bar. Out of nowhere, you feel that subtle prick on the back of your neck, that quiet awareness that someone is looking at you. You turn slightly, and for the briefest moment, a woman's eyes meet yours. Then instantly, she looks away, almost as if it never happened. Most men laugh it off, tell themselves it was nothing, and go back to staring at their phone. But here's what's really going on. She just tested your entire frame in a single second. Why does this test matter? Because women are drawn to men who are rooted, men who don't get shaken easily. When she glances, she isn't just checking your face. She's reading your response. Did you shrink? Did you freeze? Did you hold that glance like you were desperate for it? Every microsecond gives her data. And the man who betrays that he has no internal anchor, no self-control, is the man she mentally crosses off the list. You didn't fail because she didn't like how you looked. You failed because you showed her you were too eager for her approval. Let's make this tactical. Imagine you're at a cafe. You catch her eyes once. What most men do is immediately lock on again, hoping to recreate that spark. They lean in with their stare, basically begging her to confirm it wasn't an accident. That's when she shifts her body away, fidgets with her phone, and pretends you no longer exist. Why? Because you already failed. You gave away that her glance mattered too much. The correct move. Meet it once, calm, almost curious, then let it dissolve. Go back to your world like nothing happened. That tiny moment of restraint forces her curiosity to grow. She thinks, why didn't he chase it? Does he not care? Who is he that he can notice me and move on so easily? That's the seed of attraction. There's a reason women glance instead of staring openly. Subtlety protects them. They want to test men without risking rejection, without giving away too much power. So if you think about it, when she glances at you, she's taking a risk in her own way. And when you overreact, you punish her for it. You basically tell her you can't safely show me interest because I'll collapse into you instantly. But when you remain grounded, when you treat her glance as just another piece of background noise, you make her feel safe to keep feeding you more. That's how the tension builds. Now, here's the deeper trap. You underestimate how often these glances happen because you're distracted. You're scrolling Instagram, checking messages, standing hunched over like life is passing you by. You aren't paying attention, so you miss them. And when you miss them, you reinforce the story in your head that no one notices you. That story makes you slouch more, detach more, become invisible. Meanwhile, the truth is women were already scanning you, but your blindness made you reject their signals. You weren't invisible, you were just asleep. Think of it like hunting. Predators don't move desperately, they move with patience, stillness, silence. The same is true with masculine presence. If you want to see the glances, you have to be still enough to notice them. You can't be jittery, can't be lost in your phone, can't be radiating insecurity. You need to stand like the man who knows the world will eventually turn its head toward him. When you carry that calm certainty, you'll be shocked at how many pairs of eyes flick toward you in any room. Not because you suddenly got more attractive, but because you finally gave yourself permission to see it. Let me give you a story. A man was sitting alone at a rooftop lounge, sipping his drink, convinced that he was invisible. Across the room, a woman looked his way 3 separate times. He never noticed. Finally, she got up and left with her friends. He sighed, finished his drink, and muttered, "Of course no one noticed me tonight." But if he had been aware, if he had simply caught one of those glances and responded with stillness, that entire night could have shifted. Attraction doesn't scream, it whispers, and most men are too loud in their own head to hear it. So here's your practical move the next time you step into a room. Remove the distractions, no phone, no nervous fidgeting, just breathe, scan, and hold yourself like you belong there. If you catch a glance, don't rush, don't act, simply notice it, acknowledge it with a calm presence, and return to your life. That's the entire game. If she's interested, she'll give you another glance, or 2, or she'll create a reason to be in your space. If not, you've lost nothing, because your frame remained intact. The goal isn't to win every glance, it's to never lose your center because of one. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a woman's glance hours later, wishing you'd done something? Have you ever convinced yourself that women never notice you, only to later realize you'd been missing signals all along? And here's the hardest question. Are you too distracted to see the attention you're already getting? Be honest with yourself. Drop your experience in the comments. Think about the last time you walked into a room and felt small. Maybe it was a party, a bar, or even just a casual gathering. You convinced yourself no one noticed you, so you folded inward, checking your phone, finding a corner to disappear into. But here's the harsh truth. Women probably glanced at you in those first few minutes. They scanned you the moment you entered, the way women always do, instinctively, silently, assessing whether you had the energy of a man who mattered. And because you didn't believe it, you didn't see it. By the time you finally looked up, their interest was gone. This is one of the most painful traps men fall into. You don't lose because women aren't looking, you lose because you refuse to see it. That refusal is rooted in insecurity. Somewhere deep down, you've trained yourself to believe you're not attractive enough, not tall enough, not charismatic enough. So when she glances, your brain filters it out. It protects you from the possibility that her glance might mean something, because to believe that would mean facing the responsibility of doing something with it. Easier to pretend it wasn't real. Easier to tell yourself she was just bored, or that she wasn't looking at you at all. That's not humility, that's self-sabotage. Here's what you need to understand. Women are constantly scanning. They're wired for it. From the way you walk, to how you hold your jaw, to whether your body looks tense or relaxed. It's not just physical attraction, they're looking for social proof, confidence, safety, and strength. Their glances are not random, they're information gathering. And every time you miss one, you miss a chance to let her curiosity deepen. Let's get tactical here. The next time you notice a glance, don't immediately respond with a stare down. That's insecurity trying to grab certainty. Instead, adopt what I call the slow pivot. If you catch her eyes, hold them calmly for a second, just long enough to show you're present, then pivot back into your world. This communicates 2 things: you're aware, and you're not dependent on her attention. That small move is magnetic. It tells her, yes, I saw you. Yes, I could give you more. But my world doesn't stop just because you looked at me. That frame is rare, and women feel it instantly. I'll give you a real-world example. A man is at a networking event. A woman glances at him twice. Instead of rushing over or pretending he didn't notice, he simply meets her look once, smiles faintly, then continues his conversation with another man. Minutes later, she walks over, pretending to ask a question about the topic they were discussing. Why did she approach? Because his calm acknowledgement told her he wasn't desperate, and his focus elsewhere forced her curiosity to rise. That's the game. You don't chase the glance, you make her chase the meaning behind it. But here's where most men fail. They treat the glance as if it's the prize itself. They get so excited by being noticed that they crumble under the weight of it. They start overcompensating, talking too loudly, trying to be funny, or hovering like a shadow. The energy flips from composed to needy. And in that instant, the attraction dies. Remember this, the glance is not the prize. It's the opening move. How you respond decides whether the game continues or ends right there. Now let's address the darker layer. Some women use the glance deliberately to pull you in, with no intention of giving more. It's not attraction, it's control. She gives you just enough to get your attention, then withholds it to make you chase. If you fall for it, you end up orbiting her without her investing anything. This is why restraint is so important. If she glances and you respond with calm detachment, you don't give her the satisfaction of knowing she owns your focus. She'll either step closer or she'll disappear. Either way, you remain untouched, unshaken. The cost of missing this lesson is huge. Every time you ignore or overreact to glances, you reinforce the story that women don't notice you. That belief weakens your presence in every room. You start walking like a man no one sees. You start speaking like a man whose words don't matter. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But once you flip it, once you walk into a room assuming women are scanning you, assuming glances will happen, you carry yourself differently. You stand straighter, you breathe slower, you look less desperate, and suddenly the glances multiply, because women are drawn to the man who already knows he's being seen. Ask yourself this: how many times have you ignored subtle signals because you didn't think you were worth them? How often have you stared too long, only to feel her pull back, leaving you embarrassed? And be honest, have you ever chased after a glance, only to realize later she never intended to give you more? Share your experience. Someone else watching this right now has lived the same story. There's a reason women's glances hit you harder than you expect they're designed to. A glance is not just a flicker of the eye, it's a carefully timed drop of fuel into your psyche. She knows it lingers. Hours later, you'll still be replaying that moment, wondering if it meant something. And here's the brutal truth: some women use this as a weapon. They drop glances like breadcrumbs, not to lead you into connection, but to test how easily you follow. If you stumble after every crumb, you've already shown her that your center can be shaken by the smallest gesture. That is all the information she needs to know. She owns the frame. Think about it. The man who reacts desperately to attention is no different than a child chasing candy. He gets one sweet taste and suddenly believes he's starving without more. That's how women filter men. A single glance is enough to expose your level of control or your lack of it. If you lean in, grin like a fool, or orbit her with your body language, you've answered her unspoken question: does this man govern himself? Or can I govern him? She doesn't need to test further. You already gave the answer. Now, let's flip the script. The man who notices a glance but refuses to be pulled by it, that man radiates danger. Not the kind of danger that harms, but the kind of danger that unsettles her comfort zone. She's used to men melting when she looks their way, but you meet her eyes with calm weight, then return to your drink, your conversation, your focus. That unsettles her because it denies her certainty. She has to lean in again, test again, invest again. Suddenly, she's the one chasing clarity, and that reversal is where your true power lives. Let me give you a concrete example. Picture two men at a bar. A woman glances at both. The first one locks on, waves, tries to signal his interest. She looks away, slightly annoyed, and never looks back. The second man catches her glance, tilts his glass slowly as if to say, "Noted," and goes back to his friends. 10 minutes later, she positions herself closer to his side of the bar. Why? Because one man collapsed under the weight of her glance, and the other made her wonder if her glance mattered at all. Curiosity is the hook, and you only create curiosity through restraint. This is why your default setting must be indifference. Indifference doesn't mean ignorance, it means calm awareness without neediness. You see her glance, but you don't build your night around it. You don't go home worshipping it. You let it come and go like weather. That kind of man terrifies and excites women because his validation can't be bought cheap. They know that if he ever gives it, it's earned. That's what makes his attention priceless. But let's go darker. Some women weaponize glances not out of attraction, but out of boredom or ego. Maybe she's already taken. Maybe she's never going to engage. But she throws glances to remind herself she still has power. Men who don't understand this fall into the trap of chasing illusions. They waste hours, even days, decoding looks that were never meant to be anything more than self-amusement. This is why you must test the tester. If her glances are real, she will escalate another look, a smile, a shift closer, some excuse to interact. If they're not, she will retreat the moment you remain unmoved. Either way, you stay in control because you didn't hand your power over to fantasy. And here's the ultimate cost when you live blind to these dynamics. You hand over your entire self-worth to women's eyes. You begin to believe you only exist when they look at you. That belief makes you a slave to attention. But when you learn to see glances for what they are, tests, signals, sometimes games, you no longer depend on them. You flip the frame. You know you're seen, whether she admits it or not. And that quiet certainty is what turns you from a man hoping to be chosen into a man who chooses. So here's the practical move the next time you catch a woman's glance. Do nothing extra. No sudden smile, no exaggerated reaction, no shift in posture that screams. Please keep looking. Hold the eye contact for a beat. Breathe and return to your world. If she glances again, she's investing. If she shifts closer, she's escalating. And if she does nothing, you've lost nothing, because you never left your frame. This is how you filter interest from manipulation, desire from ego, without saying a single word. Tell me, have you ever wasted days overanalyzing a glance that led nowhere? Have you ever felt the sting of chasing after a woman who gave you just enough attention to keep you hooked, only to vanish? Or have you ever felt that rare power of ignoring her glance, only to watch her circle back, hungry for more? Drop your story in the comments. Here's the truth you need to hear: the way you respond to a woman's glance reveals more about your masculinity than anything you say. A glance is a mirror, and it doesn't just reflect her, it reflects you. When her eyes land on you, even for half a second, she's not just seeing your face. She's measuring your posture, your energy, your ability to carry tension without breaking. And in that split second, you show her whether you're a man who leads himself or a man desperate for someone else to lead him. Most men don't realize this because they've been trained to undervalue themselves. You think attraction has to be loud, obvious, cinematic, like in the movies where the woman stares with open admiration. In reality, it's far subtler. Women don't often give you a spotlight. They give you shadows, small flashes, quick movements, stolen looks. They want to see if you notice, but more importantly, they want to see what you become when you notice. Do you transform into a boy begging for approval? Or do you remain a man, steady, unmoved, as if her glance is one of many that you already expect to come your way. Let's make this real. Imagine you're walking down a busy street. A woman walking past you lifts her eyes for a split second and makes contact. She's not going to stop. She's not going to spell it out. But in that moment, her body gives off microsignals. Her lips part slightly. She adjusts her pace. Her shoulders shift as if to open. If you freeze, if you fumble, the moment's gone. But if you meet her eyes calmly, let a faint smirk play at your lips, and keep walking with confidence, she'll remember you long after you've passed. That's the difference between being forgettable and unforgettable, not in chasing her down, but in leaving her with tension that lingers. And this is where most men collapse. They can't handle silence. They can't handle mystery. The glance makes them nervous, so they overcompensate, talking too much, moving too fast, trying to turn a spark into a fire in seconds. But attraction isn't built by filling silence. It's built by sitting inside of it. If you can stand in the quiet of her glance without scrambling to fix it, you become magnetic. You show her you're not just comfortable with attention, you're comfortable with uncertainty. That's rare, and rarity is irresistible. There's also the practical element. The more you believe women glance at you, the more they actually will. It's not mystical, it's psychological. A man who assumes he's invisible moves differently. His steps are smaller, his body tighter, his energy muted. A man who assumes he's being seen stands taller, speaks slower, radiates certainty. Women pick up on that difference instantly, and because they are constantly scanning the environment for men who project strength, they glance more often at the man who already believes he is seen. It's a cycle you can either sabotage or fuel. But let's address the trap you must avoid: chasing glances to feed your ego. This is just as weak as ignoring them. If you start living for women's eyes, you become addicted to micro-validation. You start scanning rooms not from presence, but from hunger. That hunger poisons your energy. Women feel it immediately. Instead of glancing more, they shut off, because desperation always repels. The key isn't to chase glances. It's to expect them as a natural byproduct of your presence, and to treat them as background music, not the main song. Here's the deeper layer: when you stop attaching your worth to whether women glance at you, you free yourself. You start to notice the looks without being owned by them. And in that freedom, you discover something powerful: you've been seen more than you ever knew. Not because women suddenly changed, but because your eyes finally opened. You were never invisible. You were just blind. So let me hand you the strategy. From now on, whenever you catch a glance, treat it as a test, not a trophy. Hold it briefly, return to yourself, and watch what happens next. If she invests again another glance, a smile, a move closer, you know it's real. If she doesn't, you've lost nothing. Your world remains intact, and in that frame, you always win, because you never handed her the power to define your worth. Now ask yourself, how often do you live like a man waiting for proof he's seen, instead of walking as a man who knows he already is? How would your life change if you stopped chasing glances and started expecting them? And here's the hardest question: are you willing to detach enough from the outcome to finally see how much attention has been flowing toward you all along? Share your answer below. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.